We're live. Hey there. I'm just waiting for my good friend Nadine to join us, and we're going to do one of our lovely Love Me Chit Chats. Hey Rebecca, thanks for joining. Here's Nadine. I'll let her in and we can get started. Hope everybody's doing well on this Wednesday. It's bright and sunny here in Ontario, Canada. Oh, no, I'm not out of the frame. There we go. Hey, Nadine.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
I
Okay.
can, and I've got what we had once before. I can't see
Oh,
you.
no,
So it's
not
okay.
again.
I can hear you. I can hear you, and that's all that matters. And I don't know if you can see the picture very well here, but can you see who I've got over my shoulder?
Yes,
Little Kayleen.
the teddy.
Can you see Kayleen is sitting there,
Kayleen. Oh, that's so sweet. Love
always
it.
with me, always
Oh,
with me.
she provides you lots of support
She
through everything you've been going
certainly
through.
does. She's so lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sending her to me. She's so beautiful.
You're welcome.
Bless
My pleasure. I'm glad she's been there for you energetically when I can. Um, be there physically. So thank you for joining again and for another one of our lovely conversations. We are continuing, I think, our conversations. They kind of always evolve into the next one. So we're talking about change today, and we're just fresh off of the new moon in Pisces, which happened on Sunday the 10th, and it's the last new moon of the astrological year. So very powerful, and Pisces is the most dramatic and most
you.
spiritual sign. So I think I talked about that on some of my posts too. Like you may
Yeah,
be
yeah.
feeling inclined to maybe establish or deepen your spiritual practice or come back to some sort of spiritual essence in your life, in your world, or not. Like, always take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But we're also approaching the spring equinox, right? Coming up, I
Yes,
think, on the
yes,
19th. And we've been
yes.
talking as we've been continuing this conversation around that started, I think, at the beginning of January around feeling, the societal pressure to set goals. It's a new year. So what are you going to do? What are your resolutions? What are you going to change about your life? And, really that happening in the dead of winter when we're naturally supposed to be kind of resting and hibernating. And now kind of feeling as we approach the spring equinox too, um, that's when a lot of us or many of us feel more inclined to lean into setting new goals, like really thinking about it, getting excited about, like, it's like spring is a time of rebirth and renewal. So I think we're naturally in alignment with that, where we've kind of been
Mm.
programmed to be out of alignment, doing this at a time when it doesn't feel right. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I so agree with you. I mean, everybody that knows me knows that I'm never ready for the new year when it comes in January, and it takes a little while. And it goes, I tend to go with nature and with the feel of things. And in my part of the world, spring is taking its time to
Mm-hmm.
come. We've had a lot of wet weather, all of that kind of thing, but we have signs of it. And as soon as we have that sign of it, like flowers coming up with daffodils and beautiful flowers coming, and the few days where it's a little bit lighter and a little bit warmer, which we have had, then you instantly feel, oh, now I can do something. It's natural. It's not forced.
Right.
So I like that is the way I like to feel. So going with the flow of nature rather than, like you said, I think so beautifully, the Gregorian calendar, telling us we should be doing something. Just going with when it feels like, so it's not a chore. It's actually a lot easier. Just go, oh, it feels a bit more like I'll do something outside or do a bit of, I'm not a big gardener, but a bit of tending to the garden and that kind of thing. And just enjoying the feel. We have a little, I think you've just had your clocks change,
Oh,
haven't you? But
yes.
enjoying the feel of the little bit more lightness that we have. There's a little bit more each end of the day. And that makes a difference. And it lightens, lifts your mood a little bit. I don't know. Do you feel a bit like that? You feel a bit lifted with it?
I do definitely, as we have more daylight and light, naturally feeling lighter, feeling more energized, like feeling that energy coming in to
Yeah.
create and establish new
Mm.
routines and all of the things that
Yeah.
typically we feel like we have to do around
Yeah.
January 1st. So it's, I think, and that's what we wanted to talk about today too, like that I'm really feeling this push to change. I recently moved to
Yeah.
a new city. I don't know anybody here. I just again felt intuitively called to make a change, and um, I go back to that old saying of like nothing changes until we do, or nothing changes if nothing
Mm-hmm.
changes. And
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was, in the same place for 10 years, and same apartment, and a lot for 10 years and a lifetime, because I feel like I lived a lifetime in those 10 years, and a lot of
Yeah.
healing
It
and a
is.
lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
A
So
lot
to
of
kind of
changes in
like,
that time.
so for me, like the word change resonates in a way that I made the choice to change, but then I can't just make that choice and move here and then keep doing the same thing. It's really like setting forth this like forward motion to put myself out there and change
Yeah.
like not everything, change what's not still not working, because it's always a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. And taking that big, because it is a big step, isn't it, to make that happen. And I think the timing of your move, because it's quite recent,
Hmm.
isn't it, has been perfect. How much you planned that and how calculated you can be, I'm not sure. But does it feel that you've moved at the right time in nature? Does it feel, because it's that fresh start, isn't it? Does that feel right for you? Are you feeling that?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I wasn't planning it to happen now, and it just, like I said, intuitively, and I was in a position where I could think, gratefully, but it's scary too, but it's like this is like I feel like it's perfect timing, because now we're heading into spring, and this is the
Yeah.
actual new year, and I can get kind
Yes.
of rooted in this place and
Yeah.
then begin again, and
Yes.
we can always begin again. I always, each
Yeah.
moment is like we can do something different than we did yesterday, or even the
Mm,
moment before. We can
mm,
make that
mm.
choice. So,
Yeah.
and also I'm realizing that even though we make the choice for change, it's not, even if it's not something that happened to us, if we decided to make change in our lives, that doesn't mean that it doesn't come with a sense of like grief for the things we're moving away from, the things we're letting
Yeah.
go of, the
Yeah.
things that maybe didn't turn out the way we had hoped, right? I mean,
I think that
so there's
that's
a
so
sense of grief
valid.
around it
Yeah.
too, I
I
will
think
say.
there is,
Yeah.
isn't there, that change, and you have wanted this, and you know it's for the good and everything, but you still have parts, there's parts of things that you're leaving behind. There's change there, like you say. There is a place for sadness, loss, grief,
Mhm.
however you want to look at it. And you must be feeling that too. You've got probably very mixed emotions, I would imagine, that and actually going, oh, this is exciting, this is new, this is what I want, I know I need it, it's all good, but it's letting go of some things and changing, in like you say, you don't know anyone, all of that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. So are you feeling it's all of the emotions wrapped in there, or?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely all of the things, all of the emotions, like there's excitement, but there's fear too. There's that, feeling like am I making the right decision? It's not really around self-doubt. It's just, all the uncertainty, and we always, and change is something that's inevitable, whether, like I said, we decide to create it or it just comes.
Mm,
And
mm,
it brings with it sometimes, I think our fear around that is the uncertainty that it brings, the unknown. And so
yeah,
there's all of that, but
yeah,
the pain of facing the unknown is less than the pain of staying where I'm at. So that's why it's easier to navigate, I guess. Does that make
mm.
sense?
It makes sense, but I would actually say I don't know how everyone else feels, and I'd love to hear some comments of anybody. But I feel I tend to almost question that a little bit, because there is always an option to stay where you are and maybe take that. We talked on some of our chit chats before about pressing the easy button, didn't we?
Hmm.
And I'm questioning whether what is easier, to stay stuck as you are, knowing that that's not comfortable or things aren't going the way that you want, or to make that change and
Hmm.
move and do what you've done. And I'm sort of torn,
Yeah.
because there is that, how many people would go, oh, you don't have to do it, you can stay as you are and that's okay. But there was something in you
Hmm.
that actually, no, I need to change. And however uncomfortable it might feel, and you're putting yourself out there, you're out of your comfort zone. Yes, there's sadness, loss, grief going with it. You're still doing it because like you said, to stay the way you were would have been more painful and maybe more difficult in the long run. And I think some people would go, oh, hang on a minute, is it easier to stay as you are? And
Yeah.
as I say, although I totally agree with what you're saying, and I really admire what you've done, I know that sometimes, and it is a bit of pressing the easy button, I'll go, oh, I'll stay stuck. But it is that, like you say, it's being brave, isn't it? And actually taking that step and making it happen, and keeping consistent with that, with all of your doubts and fears and wondering and everything, to actually go, no, I know I'm doing the right thing. So was it something deep in you that made you feel that? Is it an intuition thing that you tune into? How do you cope with
I
those feelings?
yeah. I think it's definitely intuition, but also life experience,
Yeah,
because like
yeah,
I know I'm just like number one, a lifelong learner, and I know I'm here to learn and expand, and I don't want to, I believe in karmic lessons, so I feel like we're also here to learn and to kind of reconcile that. So, but also just, and it's not about not being grateful for what I have and then a constant need for change, because I'm not saying just like we need change to expand and grow. We don't always. We can, find growth in a stationary place too, if that's what's working for us. But for me, I think, and then the other thing is too, like it might be like you said something about being like comfortable where you are, and kind of like it's not necessarily feeling stuck, but just like comfortable where you are. And I'm just always reminded again through life experiences that we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And um, we can, you know, stay in a job, for example, that's comfortable for us, um, because we're comfortable. We're in our comfort zone. Like, why would
yeah,
I,
yeah.
it's scary to go out there and try something else,
It
but
is.
we could
Yeah.
get let go tomorrow as well. Like it's happened twice to me. And the second
Yes.
time it was
Yes.
like I
Me
welcomed
too.
it. It was a blessing.
Mm,
People may think that's like weird to think of getting let go because we attach our identity to our work, our job.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, it was a blessing because I was in the wrong place. So I feel like a lot of times, if we're not making change in our life, the universe is going to come in and make it for us. And so,
I.
and give us things that will help us
Mm,
see life through a new lens. I mean,
yeah.
what do you think about that? Because I know
I.
you have your own experiences relative to
I.
that too.
I so do. And actually, when you talk about jobs, in your career and everything, I've been fired from jobs, sacked from jobs. I've been made redundant a couple of times. And whenever that's happened, I've never knowingly wanted it. But actually, you can look back at these things and go, actually, that wasn't good. Maybe I needed to move. Maybe I needed that. And I remember one time when I actually got sacked from a job. And someone said to me, oh, you made that happen. You needed that. You just couldn't leave yourself. You actually made it so that I think I was quite badly
Mhm.
behaved to make that happen. And that's quite, because at the time I was like, no, I didn't. That can't be true. But I think that might be true. I think that, like you say, if you don't, I obviously wasn't brave enough to make that change myself, but I did manufacture it in a roundabout way, and it did happen, and it was for the good. So it is right. I think sometimes it's harder, isn't it, to be brave and make the change yourself, and where you can actually, if it does happen to you, even if you have inadvertently made that happen, sometimes it's easier because you just go, oh, that happened, and you get on with it, don't you? So I think, as I say, what you've done by actually going, this is what I'm doing, with all of your thoughts, all of your emotions, all of your fears around it, you've stayed strong and done it. And I think it is, yeah, to be admired. And I agree with you. Yes, we're growing all the time, and this is important. But I know I can lapse back quite often and stay the same rather than pushing that change. But like you say, change happens whether you want it to or not. So.
Yeah.
It is there. And I know I shared with you a little story about when I was younger. As a family, we moved around quite a lot. So moving house was quite I would say, it's got sort of feelings of trauma to me, um,
Yeah.
because that was almost like, and I don't know if it's the right term, but to actually say it was done to
Hmm.
me. I had no say. When you're a child, you don't have any say, do you? So we moved around quite a lot. So that has made me, as an adult, very fearful of moving and all the hard work that comes with it and the emotions that come with it. So I have that tendency to stay where I am a little bit. So it is, again, that's another layer of
That's
my feelings around actually uprooting myself. Because it's right, isn't it? When you're a child, you do what you're told. You have no, they don't, parents don't consider little children in their decisions, do they? Why would they?
there.
And
Yeah.
I did, as a child, I felt very much like I've got no say in this. Is it nothing to do with me?
Hmm.
But it
It's
wasn't.
it's interesting because, like, I think, a lot of times as adults we say, well, children are resilient, they'll get through
Yes,
it. That's always the
yes,
narrative. And it's
yeah,
like, well, yes, they are, but that doesn't mean that they're not
yeah,
impacted by it. And, when
yes,
we talked about that, like, we've had several conversations, and when we talked about that, I shared with you,
mm,
like, my story around moving, like, myself causing trauma for, realizing after the fact, causing trauma for my kids, in moving abruptly
yeah,
twice during their
mm,
childhood for
yeah,
reasons that they understood, but that doesn't take away from the disruption to their lives. And as
yeah,
much as I tried to minimize that, it still impacted them. So and I
mm,
talk about it in my book, so I can feel like I
you
can
do.
talk about it here.
Yeah, you do.
Um,
Yeah,
and it's, it still doesn't mean, just because they adjusted and they understood, like they told me, we understand, it it doesn't mean that they're not going through their own internalization of what's going on, and that it
yes,
didn't impact
yeah,
them.
yeah,
It did,
mm,
in hindsight. So it's like
yeah,
that. So I get it. And I guess, I don't know, it's, in retrospect, it's like I didn't want to cause that trauma for
yeah,
them, but it kind of had to be done. And
mm,
I mean, yeah, like, it's something that we work through together and heal.
mm,
And this is where we grow, because through that we can kind of like go back to that
yeah,
trauma.
yeah,
And that's, we talk about it all the time, that we don't have to
yes,
carry that with us forever,
yeah,
for this lifetime, if we don't want to. I mean, it'll always be there. We can't erase it, but
mm,
we can lessen its impact and influence on how we behave and operate in
yeah.
life, I guess.
I think that's the important thing, isn't it? I'm saying it, and people might be going, "Oh, I'm having a moan and blaming my parents," and that's not what it's about. It's
No.
recognizing, isn't
Mm,
it, that that is where my feelings now come from, and that's okay. It's fine and
yeah.
totally understandable. That's how it is. Adults have to make decisions. Children, of course, go with them, and that's the way it is. There is a bit of my feeling is like the emotions. It was never talked about really, so the emotions weren't there. But it's something later on you can work through, and I have done a lot of work on that. I understand it, but it's still there, and that's okay as well, isn't it? That those feelings are there, but I know what it is. So again, if needs be, I can work through it. And I think again, this comes something you talk about a lot in your book as well, isn't it? About this unlearning and relearning.
Hmm.
I learned that a move was something that we did quickly in secret, without talking about it, without thinking about emotions, without discussion almost. It was just done. But it doesn't have to be that way. So it's that unlearning and relearning that it can be done in a different way. And maybe you've done that over the times that you've moved. It's like, well, we'll do it a different way this time. I don't know. Have you felt that is, it's important to do things in a different way when you do them?
Yeah, and I've learned too, like, what not to lead the conversation, like, even the exact words that I start a conversation around, anything
Mm,
that's like change related in our lives. And because it's having the awareness and having that communication. And I think you brought up such an important point around emotions, and how, like, how subtly we are kind of conditioned to suppress that. Like, just like,
yeah,
nobody, like you said, nobody talked about your move.
yeah,
You weren't allowed to
yeah.
really express how you were feeling around that. And that's just one event. And
Mm,
it's like
mm,
everything that we go through in in life, in our childhood, like a lot of things, like there is a lot of emotions, but we're not really allowed to like express that a lot of
Yeah.
times. And I think it's
Mm,
because it's a societal thing. It's not to again blame our
mm,
parents or whatever. It's
mm,
society.
mm. Yes.
It's the discomfort around that part of our humanity, that because it makes us, when we see somebody else emotional or of any kind, we then we're witnessing them, but we're also connecting the dot to
Bring it.
ourselves, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's
It brings it.
uncomfortable, and especially
Mm,
if we're not comfortable being in our own emotions and feeling
yes.
them as we have them. So
Yes. I think that definitely happens, doesn't it? And I feel, going back to me moving as a child, it wasn't easy for my parents, so it's actually whatever the circumstances were and what was going on, it wasn't easy. And it is that, like you say, children have this, or they're resilient, they can cope and they're fine, or they don't understand, they don't know, it doesn't matter, that kind of thing. And actually not realizing that those feelings are there.
mhm.
And when we don't, and when I was younger, I didn't understand what my feelings were. They were just feelings that they were very confusing. So it is something, and I'm not, that it isn't necessarily that we needed to sit down and talk about it, but it is wonderful that we can go back to that with that kind of inner child work and the work that we talk about and we help our clients with so much. We can go back and recognize where that comes from, what it is, and it is okay. And that, but we can still carry on. And I'm sure you really went through that with your recent move, that, yeah, the feelings are there, but that's okay. I can still do this with all of those feelings there, and
Yeah,
being aware of it, and actually, like you say, choose to do it a little bit differently or do it the same anyway, because everything's going to be okay. And I think you said it earlier, didn't you? Remembering, that it is all about growth and change, and sometimes remembering that you've been through it before and it was okay. You did survive. It was right. Remembering those experiences is quite beneficial, isn't it? To go, I've been
yeah,
through it before,
yeah.
and we're okay. Yeah.
And I
So
think,
it's
yeah, I think that just yeah, being like you said, it is scary to be in a new space, like, and to like feel whatever is coming up with that. But I feel like that is the exact same reason why I, like, when I wrote my book and I went through the breakup, and I realized that my life, like, I didn't want to keep repeating the same patterns in my life, in relationships, whether that was with romantic partners or family or work or whatever. And then so making the choice to face that, even if it was scary, even if it, like,
yeah,
I didn't know, um because it was me, it
yeah,
wasn't, it was me that I needed to explore, not
yeah.
outside of me.
Mm,
So, and I feel
mm,
like this is just another extension of that. It's just finding, experiencing and exploring myself in a new environment. And
yeah, yeah,
Rebecca
mm,
said something in the comments too. When we have change geographically, we are then confronted with the change that needs to take place within to acclimate to our new environment. A deeper impact of change that can be challenging. Yeah, like that's exactly
yes.
it. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? Because it is external, but it's internal as well, isn't it? So, and to actually, it is challenging. Without a doubt, it's challenging, and that's why I say some people go, "Oh, I don't need to do that. I wouldn't do it." But it's challenging, but it is growth, and so you evolve, and it's all for the good. And you can, I think, well, I know that when I look back at anything, however difficult I thought it was at the time, it has always been for the good. And that again is, if we can remember that, and life experience teaches us that, doesn't it? It's really valuable to, for me anyway, to hold on to that. Yes, it is challenging, it can be difficult, but it is worth it when you do it.
Right.
And I suppose that carries you through as well, doesn't it? This is something that might be a little bit painful or challenging, but it is going to be worth it. It's for growth, it's for expansion, it's for us evolving, isn't it? So it's
Yeah.
worth doing.
And it's, it could be the best decision I've ever made in my life, or it could be one of those, like, what the hell are you doing,
Yeah,
Trish, kind of things. But it's
yeah,
like I won't know until I experience it. So I'm willing to,
exactly.
at this point in my life,
Yeah,
um, and it's not like I'm moving across the country or to a different
no,
country or
no.
whatever, but it's 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 something new and it's exciting and it's
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like a grown up finally at almost 54 years old. So yeah.
Yes. Good for you. That's I'm still waiting for that one to
Yeah.
hit me, and I'm nearly 60, but one day I'll be grown up. But it is something. It reminded me when you were talking then about an exercise that I did. Oh, when I was in management years ago, that was, and you might have done it in a different way, but where
Hmm.
you go, you're blindfolded and you take a step and you go where you go, and then your partner, because it's about trust, it's an exercise,
Right.
and your partner will say whether you've done it left, right, or whatever, and correct you, and you go down a path. But it's about trust, but it's also about you learning that it doesn't matter what step you take, there's no right or wrong. You just take a step and
Yeah.
you can correct it, you can move, you can adjust, you can do everything. And it just, when you were talking, then I just had a memory of that.
Hmm.
And it was very much like not to stay still, not to be brave and take a step, because it doesn't matter which way you go.
Yeah.
You're taking a step and that will take you somewhere. And then you go somewhere else and then you go somewhere else. And that was a powerful lesson. And again, that physical way of learning, which I like to do, practically doing something.
Yeah.
That lesson really hit home. Have you ever done anything like that?
I
Is that
don't know
something
if
you're
I've
familiar
ever
with?
done, but I want to do that.
Mm,
Or like, yeah, but it really brings in the element of trust, like you said,
yeah,
that's what this is about, is like just trusting that,
trusting.
like
Mm,
everything feels right, everything feels good. It was so easy to find the place that I'm in,
yeah,
to move
yeah.
to, like it happened in less than a month, and
Mm,
from looking at it to moving, and I'm just reminded of one of our mutual cohorts or friends, Diane McClay. She has this quote in her book, or she wrote a chapter in a book called "Dreaming Big and Being Bold," and I'm just like, I was reminded recently of, it's like, what is it? You will not know where your journey takes you. Or where you will end up, but you can trust in knowing that you cannot stay where you are. So something
yeah,
like that. So I feel like
that's it,
that's the
isn't it? Yeah,
trust.
yeah.
Like I just, yeah.
Mm, mm,
And that's not to say that this kind of thing is, like you said, people might not resonate with it. People might be just like comfortable right where they're at, and that's okay too. We're not,
mm,
we're all unique. We're all here on our own journeys, I believe.
yeah,
Our souls each have their own journey to take. And
yeah,
for me, doing something like this is allowing my soul, like, to continue that journey, maybe just in another area, and
yeah,
find new community
yeah.
and
Mm,
um, new
mm,
experiences that I wouldn't have where I
yeah,
was before.
yeah, yeah. Totally. But that's the thing, isn't it? It is okay for people to stay still for a little while if needs
Mhm.
be. And sometimes that's really valuable, isn't it? To be, my time isn't right now, but it's tuning into you, isn't it? And trusting your own instinct a lot of the time, isn't it? Whatever is
Yeah.
right. And actually, going with that. And it is, like you say, it's about trust, isn't it? And feeling, and like you say, sometimes change is something that you have made happen when you're driven to, and sometimes change is something that just happens around you, which happens all
Hmm.
the time. But it is, I feel it's very important to, it's always look for the silver linings, isn't it? Whatever happens and however you feel, whether you chose it or you didn't, there is always good, isn't there? Always, always good, because we're moving and it's something that we're doing rather than being still, and stillness is good, maybe temporarily, you know,
Hmm.
but movement is so beneficial as well in whatever shape or form, isn't it? And
And
I,
yeah, I want to ask you, that reminds me of, like, well, you've of change happening to you. You've gone through your
yeah,
own, especially
yeah,
over this last year, lots of change, and
yes,
like
yeah,
how your relationship with that
yeah.
and what that has brought for
Yeah,
you.
it's again, it's that mix of emotions, isn't it? The changes that I've been through this past year, most people know about it, having a cancer diagnosis, having a treatment plan. And incidentally, it was exactly a year ago to this day that my treatment plan was laid out for me.
Oh wow.
And actually, and terrifying as that was at the time, this is what's going to happen. And the word chemotherapy was in there, and I went, ugh, that kind of thing. But it's still going on, and the changes have been there. And people that listen to me, and you know, I've shared a lot with you, Trish, personally as well. Actually, you know, there's been all of the emotions going on, the fear, the worry, the, you know, seeing the good side, seeing the funny side and everything, but it's changed. And I can say, obviously, I didn't choose this, I didn't ask for this to happen, but there's a lot of good in it. You know, I've moved on, I've evolved, I've changed, I've grown, I've faced some of my biggest fears, you know. So there is, I can sort of look back, as I say, a year down the line, looking at it and going, actually, you know, maybe I needed this, which some people might find very strange. You know, as I say, I wouldn't wish it, but there's been that change. It's that kind of looking, really having to look at my life and look at my feelings towards everything. It's brought up a lot of emotion stuff in the past as well that's been triggered and everything, and looking at it again with a different point of view because I'm in a different place, and just going, yeah, you know, maybe I didn't choose it, but actually, you know, there's a lot of, again, I'm going to come back to that unlearning and relearning
Mm-hmm.
and growth and expansion, and how, you know, I am constantly changing through this physically and emotionally, you know, and definitely growing. So there is, you know, there's some gratitude there without a doubt, which people might find a bit strange, but there definitely is that feeling. So it is whether we choose it or not. Um, yeah, it can be for the good.
I think, yeah. And I think that thank you, first of all, for everything that you just shared, because it is the whole spectrum of emotions I think that you go through, like you said, and just
Mm,
honoring that. And
mm,
but also you can, you know, be in those emotions and be grateful, like you said,
yes, yeah,
for things that it's uncovered about yourself. And I
yeah,
think, you know,
yeah,
that's what
mm,
these things, that's what change does, whether we ask for
mm,
it or we don't.
yeah,
Um, it allows
mm,
us that opportunity to do some self exploration
yeah,
and witness
yeah,
ourselves, like how are we
yeah,
in this space right now, and what, you
yeah,
know, what's beneath it, if we're feeling some kind of emotions or whatever.
mm,
A lot of times when something significant like this happens, it uncovers, like, again, whether you asked for it, whether you chose it or you didn't, it still uncovers a lot of things that maybe we haven't or have dealt with
yeah,
in our past.
mm,
And um, so, like you said, it kind of like brought you to that place of like unlearning certain things and relearning.
mm,
And for
mm,
me
mm,
too, like I feel like even moving has brought up, you know, it's brought up a lot of memories of the space that I was in, and the space that, like, what
yeah,
happened there and the healing that I did, like I said. So,
mm, mm,
and then honoring that, but also being willing to like let that go, because that's a part, it'll always be a part of me, but it's
yeah,
not at the forefront anymore. it's
mm, mm,
it's 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 always going to be there, but it's something that we can, I think, learn to just evolve our relationship with, I guess.
yeah.
And that can go for anything, really.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, really. Evolve your relationship with these things. I mean, I can take fear as an example and go, oh, I would have done anything to not be scared. That was definitely a thing. And now I can go, I have a different relationship with fear. I can
Right.
see that I can get through it. I can see that it's okay. It's only temporary
Mm-hmm.
to feel scared, and to feel scared is protection. It's looking, my body, my ego, whatever you want to call it, is looking after me. That fear is there, and it's for a very good reason, but it doesn't have to stop you. It doesn't have to freeze you. You can
Right.
still go through these things, and it can be okay. And that is a big lesson that I have learned. You know, it's okay to feel those feelings. And again, that relationship, and I'm remembering fear in the past, it's different. I can handle it differently now with the things that I've learned and the support that I have as well. You know, so it is, like you say, it's looking at things in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
because we are constantly evolving, aren't we? So it's very beneficial, isn't it, to keep, and sometimes, you know, to revisit those, for those things to come up again. And you've said it so many times, Trish, and you say it much better than I do. But you know, we need that. Sometimes it's come up again because it needed to. We needed
Mm-hmm.
to learn that lesson again. We needed to revisit that from a different perspective. Sometimes, you know, to go back again. And I said, didn't I, at the start of all this, when I got my diagnosis, I went, really? Do I need any more lessons? You know, oh, I thought I'd learned enough. You know, you heard me say
Yeah.
that so many times, didn't you? And then I go, yeah, I did need to revisit all of that. I did need to do it again, and I did need to have all this experience. I didn't like it, but I was very much like, why, what's going on? Not why me, but why is this happening? It was very much that, but now I've got a better understanding of it and going, yeah, it needed, something needed to happen for me to look at these things again and learn a bit more, dig a bit deeper, feel a bit more, go through those emotions to grow a bit more as well, which is something, and that's where I do feel
Right.
the gratitude of it. And it is, and I think I said, because you repeated it back to me, and I'm so grateful for that, because it's something that I said, and I said it quite flippantly, but it is, we don't choose how the lessons come, they just show up as they do. And
Mm-hmm.
actually it's so, now that, because you highlighted, you sort of reflected it back to me when I said it, and I hadn't realized I'd said it, but it's quite powerful, isn't it, that we don't choose that. The lessons will come whether we realize that we need them or not, and they show up in a way that we sometimes can't imagine, but they're valuable lessons, aren't they? And again, that feeling grateful for those lessons and realizing, I did need those lessons, sometimes repeated, sometimes new lessons, I did need it.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's so, yeah, that's so true. Like we don't know how it's going to come,
Mm.
how 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 our growth happens. Like, we can set, like, I set out to do this move, but something else could, it's like something else can come
Yeah,
in and I can,
yeah,
learn a bigger
yeah.
lesson than I thought I was going to learn or whatever.
Mm.
But and I think that,
Mm.
you touched on like fear and how that plays a part in what we do. And I
Yeah.
feel like, always like and I think my relationship with fear has changed too. Like it does, like I still get scared around to do things. Like it, I got like, as I was leading up to this move, I was kind of feeling a little bit of fear around that, again, uncertainty, and feeling like I was losing myself again. Like what am I doing, and where am I, and who am I, and like all these questions.
Mm.
And it's like, I think before the fear kind of creeps in, right before, like, the scariest part is right before we do
Yeah,
the thing
yeah,
that we're
yeah,
scared of. And
yeah.
so it's a reminder of that
Mm.
that we're going to feel it, and it's going to feel the scariest. But as soon as we take that first step into
That's
whatever it
the
is,
move.
then
Yeah.
we can kind of, okay, let go of that and just go
Mm.
through it and
Yeah.
experience it and be open to
And
whatever the lessons are.
that's the thing, isn't it? And again, that brings us back to that movement. Take that step,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. There's no right or wrong. It's moving forward, if you like, which is really important. And I know you wrote a poem recently, which you shared on social media. And again, I'd like to encourage everyone to follow Trish all over the place, because what you share is so, so valuable. And you wrote this. This isn't in one of your books because it's a newish poem, isn't it? But it's I can feel myself shrinking. And actually, there's
Mm-hmm.
a few lines in there, if you wouldn't mind if I just share with everyone. And you just said exactly that. One of the lines is often just before expansion comes contraction.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually, we feel sometimes that fear, we feel we want to shrink, we want to hide, we're scared. And then actually, that is a sign that there's something big coming, isn't there? So there's something wonderful coming. So that is something. And I think that's the sort of theme of the poem. I'm not going to read the whole poem out, but I'd encourage everyone to look at your post, because you shared it recently, didn't you? And
Yeah.
and you say as well, something we've talked about as well, another one of the lines is often answers come to us when we are ready for them. So whether we realize that we're ready for them, the answer will be there. So that movement, that discomfort, that feeling, that emotions coming up, the answers are coming to us, whether we realize it or not, and when the universe almost knows when we're ready.
Yeah.
And I think that is really wonderful, isn't it? And that I know that, because I've asked you about your process of writing and everything. And again, I think you shared with me, which I think is so beautiful. Sometimes these things come to you when you're walking, when you're doing something physical. Is that something that, you want to explain a bit more how that works for people
Yeah.
for you?
I mean, I think it's like when I go for walks, especially like in nature, like that is where I kind of, and it's like kind of a walking meditation maybe, but
Mm.
that's when the messages kind of come through, and
Mm.
I start to, like, yeah, just feel it flowing. So I have to stop and I write write it out on my phone. And I actually wrote a lot of my book. A lot of the poetry was written on my phone while I was out for my walks. Um, and yeah, that message around the contraction right before we're about to expand, we feel there's a contraction, and like that nothing can be constantly expanding. There has to
Yes.
be, by
Yes.
laws of nature, a contraction before it can
Yes.
expand, and or anything can expand. And so I received that message like when I was ready to hear that. Like I said, leading up to the move, I felt like that maybe week before or something, I started feeling fear, and like I
Yeah.
wasn't myself, and I felt like I was shrinking. Like I'm like, why am I feeling like
Yeah.
I'm shrinking back
Yeah.
into like
Feeling
my
that.
old self
Yeah.
or whatever it was. Like
Mm,
all these thoughts were
mm,
coming in, um
yeah.
and then I was like, when I was ready, I heard that, and I was like, that's what it is. Like that's what's
Mm,
happening to me right now. And it's like, so
yes.
it's a
You
reminder
recognise
too
it.
for me, because I always, even though I'm open to messages, it's like, I'm always like needing to remind myself to stay open too, because messages come
Yeah.
when we're ready, but they
Yeah.
also come in ways we might not expect them, through other people, through a
Yeah.
sign on the,
Yeah.
sidewalk or whatever.
Mm,
A
mm,
coin you find, it might remind you that your loved ones that have passed. Like for me, if I see a dime, I know it's my grandfather. If I see a penny, I know it's my grandmother, like giving me a
I love
sign,
that.
like that they're there supporting me or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like to stay
Mm.
open for those messages.
I
And
think that's important, isn't it? Because we can miss things sometimes, can't
mhm,
we? And that, like you say, walking in nature gives you that inspiration. Sometimes that movement is again going back to that moving rather than being still. But again, in contradiction, nothing in nature, like you say, expands all the time. So it is okay to be still and shrink a little bit from time to time and give
yeah,
yourself that. And I think, again, it's another line from this beautiful poem, let yourself shrink into a tiny little ball and rest there a
right.
while. I think that's so beautiful because it's okay to do that too, isn't
It
it?
is.
To actually go, there's a time for the movement and making those movements forward. That helps you and in your creative process definitely does. I think it's lovely to think that you can create things while you're walking and nature helps you. But it's also okay when you feel that way to just let yourself shrink a little and rest a while. And I'm so big on that. Just rest a little while. And that's powerful, isn't it? That's looking after yourself, isn't it? So beautifully.
It is. And that's not to say, like, even though I said, like, I write a lot when I'm walking, that doesn't mean, like, I still write a lot in stillness too. And I think the
Mm,
process, what I wanted to not forget to say too, is the process of just writing out whatever thoughts
mm,
are like swirling around is
yeah.
so
Mm,
healing and so informative, in and of itself. Like it helps me, and I know others have said the same. It
yeah.
helps like process like whatever emotions you're feeling, whatever's
Yes.
going on inside that
Yeah.
you can't quite identify. It helps identify
Mm,
it, I think. So
yeah.
whether that's through stillness
Yeah.
or movement, however it
Yes.
comes through, to allow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I think there's room for both, isn't there? Which is beautiful. And another one, I just have to say, another one of the lines that really spoke to me in this beautiful poem was because we've talked about it in our little chit
Yep.
chat today, about when we've got the fear and, the
Mm,
fear can be there, but it doesn't have to stop us. And your line is so beautifully written, even if you're holding fear's hand the whole time.
mm.
And I just, as soon as I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, I done that? I've done that so much. I have been holding fear's hand, but I've still done things. And it is, again, that's okay, isn't it, to do that? I'm scared, but I'm still doing it. And the way that, again, you word things so beautifully, even if you're holding fear's hand the whole time, you just go, oh my God, that's me. So
Thank
beautifully
you for
written.
that and for sharing. I think I mean, it is powerful. It is like, yeah, it's like take fear by the hand and still do it
Yeah.
anyways. And you're gonna move
Yeah.
through it. So,
And
uh,
it's really that just to me that conjures up such an image as well of like it's a little bit comforting too.
hmm
Fear is looking after me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not
hmm
reading too much into it. If you
You're
read it, you
not.
feel what you feel, don't
No.
you? But
Yeah.
but I actually just think there's so much in that. You're holding fear's hand. I'm thinking fear is holding your hand. You're in this together. And that's all right. The whole time fear can be part of what drives you, maybe, or what is there
Yeah.
for you, and that's all right, isn't it? Fear doesn't have to be scary.
Right. And
It is.
fear is really just our self-protection. It's our
Yes,
ego protecting
yes,
itself. So it
yes,
can be part of the process, and but we can also
yes,
hold its hand and kind of say, okay, I got
yes,
this too. Like
yes,
you can be here, but I
exactly.
got this kind
Yes,
of thing.
this power of,
Yeah.
this hand holding, whichever way we want to look at it, we're holding on to fear, going, yeah, I can handle this. Or fear is holding us and looking after us. I just love the way, and again, this is what I say about poetry, it puts a lot of feeling, a lot of explanation into very concise wording, and I love that. There's a lot in that little
Mm.
line, isn't there? There's a hell of a lot
I
in
love
there.
it
And I love
too for
that.
that
And I
reason.
do.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. So as I said, I'd encourage everyone to look at social media because you put that out there. I'm not going to put pressure on you to write another book, but I know there will be one.
There will be
But
one.
we have or more. At the moment, we have three of your wonderful books, don't we? We have a poetry book. We have The Love Me, which is your
Hmm.
original story, which is wonderful, which contains poetry as well. And we have your Love Me meditations, which is beautiful, isn't it? So can you remind everyone where they can get hold of those? Because I've got mine and I love them. I've got my Love Me here with all my little
Uh,
notes in, which I
thank
dip
you. Thanks
into,
for
and I'm
sharing.
in and out of this all the time, and the other ones as well, but I've got that one right by me right now. So where can people get theirs?
It's available on wherever you buy books, really, but Amazon .com.uk.co.uk.ca, Amazon worldwide. So wherever you are in the world, you can also order it through my website. This is trishcampbell.com. There's other ways to buy it there too, other links. So whatever works best for you. Yeah. And where can people find you and your lovely, you have some beautiful, we talked about meditation, so you have some beautiful guided meditations. I have them as part of my self-care toolbox for whenever I need them. And it's also, if you've never done meditation, I feel like this is the perfect entry point to begin. So where can people get those?
Yes, thank you for that, Trish. Yes, all of my meditations are quick and simple, very easy. My website, Calm Self website, you can get some meditations with some beautiful original music that really enhance what my voice is
Hmm.
asking you to do. But the best place to go and look for everything to do with what I do and what I talk about is my YouTube channel. And that again is Calmer Self. All of our chit chats go on there, don't they, Trish? All of what we talk about is on there, and that's many and varied things that we talk about. But there are some meditations on there too, but a lot of talking to people about different topics. So there's tons on there. So the YouTube channel is a good place to visit.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for sharing all of your experiences and for this conversation and continuing to talk about these things because I think it's important to talk about and just to be open to having,
Yeah,
um, just to make it, common to talk about things that we're going through and the topics that I talk about in the book that
yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to. So I appreciate you so much
They
for doing
they
this with
definitely
me
can
on an
relate, and
ongoing
know
basis.
I know that everything that you write about and what we talk about helps other people too. So please put some comments. We always look at this afterwards, don't we, Trish? So
Yeah.
put some comments down for anything that you might like us to talk about, maybe anything that you're struggling with at the moment, or if you would like any help and support. It is what myself and Trish do. We help people and support people the way that we've been helped. So do reach out to us if you feel you need anything or want to talk any more about anything, maybe a bit more personally, then please do that.
Yes. So we'll until next time, watch for the replay on this and we'll see you again the next time. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.